Welcome back, y'all, to another episode of Clash of Cultures. Today, we're going to be doing another college football preview series video. Today, we're going to be previewing the runner-ups from last year, the TCU Horned Frogs, kind of the Cinderella story from last year. But before we get into talking about TCU, if you're new to the channel, please subscribe. Returning viewers, thank you so much for your support. We've been growing the channel like crazy. It's been super fun. We still have another 30 to 40 teams to get through. So if you guys are enjoying the series, make sure you guys like the video, comment down below what you guys think of our takes, our opinions, and also comment what teams you want to see so we can kind of keep the ball rolling. But also we did have a giveaway going from the Florida State video about 5 days ago for hitting the 250 subscriber mark. And we did have a winner. His name is Fatal Jedi. So Fatal Jedi, your prize is a signed Florida State Charlie Ward Heisman jersey. So I will go ahead and comment back to you on that Florida State video, and then try to get your info so we can set up how to ship that to you and whatnot. Hopefully you're going to watch this video as well. I know you're a big Florida State fan and you found our channel in the Florida State video. So hopefully I can get in touch with you so I can get you your reward. But without further ado, Dad, how do you feel about TCU and kind of kicking this video off?
Yeah, so this is going to be a weird year for TCU. Obviously, they lost a lot of what made them so special last year, and I think that starts with Max Duggan. We know what he was. We know how special he was. I think Heisman runner-up. So starting over with Chandler Morris and a bunch of, three big Alabama transfers in Trey Sanders, and JoJo Early, and Tommy Brockemeyer. They also got a couple other players out of the transfer portal, J.P. Richardson and Willis Patrick, who I think are all going to start. The question really is how this team gels. So we're talking about a new quarterback, new running back, new wide receivers. They lost Keandre Miller to the NFL. Their leading rusher last year, almost a 1,400-yard rusher. Again, Trey Sanders, I think, was a 4 or 5-star recruit, but really didn't get the run at Alabama. So we'll see. Does he live up to that billing?
He did tear his ACL early on, and then he had a car accident, and that's why he kind of didn't play. He never really got back to his footing.
And then we know Quentin Johnston, the 6'4" wide receiver, went over 1,000 yards now with the Los Angeles Chargers. So again, a big part of what made them special last year, the players that really stepped up and did it, they're not back this year. And like I said, we're replacing a lot of players with transfer portal guys, some guys that, like I said, really didn't get run at on some other teams. J.P. Richardson, I think, came from Oklahoma State. Like I said, JoJo Early came from Alabama. So we're going to see what this team really is. I think even Chandler Morris transferred at some point, didn't he?
He transferred from Oklahoma, and he was actually recruited by Lincoln Riley. So just to kind of get my 2 cents on TCU, I know both of us kind of were in the same boat when we talked about Texas, when we talked about Oklahoma. We both thought that TCU was going to be down this year. And now if we're saying down in comparison of what they were last year, I'm going to stand on that. But to me, when we say a team is going to be down, I anticipate like a significant drop-off. And I don't think TCU is going to have a significant drop-off. So if I said that in the Oklahoma or Texas video, I'm correcting myself now. I don't think they're going to have a significant drop-off. I don't think they win the Big 12. But so just doing some research, according to ESPN, they are the 17th ranked team heading into the season. They have a projected win total at 8. That is extremely disrespectful in my eyes. 8 wins is, if that is the betting line, I mean, I would assume it's got to be right around there if ESPN has projected them to win about 8 games. That's completely disrespectful for a national runner-up. I get they lost some players, but I believe they're going to win more than 8 games. And they only have a 5% chance to win the conference. I think that's extremely disrespectful as well. And again, that's all according to ESPN. So some other outlets might have it differently, but that is according to ESPN. And like I said, I don't expect them to win the Big 12, but I think they're going to compete for the championship in that conference. I think they have the talent to do that.
I don't think you can count out Sonny Dykes and that air raid offense. They're going to put the ball up. And again, it looks like, just based off of recruiting stars, right? It looks like they're bringing back talent.
Yes.
Now, again, I think it's the consistency, the chemistry between quarterback and receivers and running back and offensive line and all that. But I think they're bringing back a ridiculous amount of talent. Does it all gel? And obviously, it's not the TCU team from last year.
And so, like I said, I mean, I think so. They brought back 4 of the 5 starters on the offensive line. Their offensive line had to have been good enough to get them to that point in the national championship game. I get they had Dugan, who was the Heisman finalist, and they had Quentin Johnson, who was a top 5 receiver. They brought over the 5th-year starter Patrick Willis from Jackson State, who we know who was with Dion, and then the 3 guys from Alabama, who all of those guys were good enough to go to Alabama. So
Right.
I would assume all those guys are going to be starting caliber players for them. I know a few of them are coming off of injury, but I expect them to be talented enough to compete. And then on the defensive end or the defensive side of the football field, I think TCU was farly underrated last year defensively. A lot of people have a notion that the Big 12 don't play defense, rightfully so. But last year, TCU played good defense. They were the 3rd best defense in the conference behind Texas and Iowa State. And they brought back 8 of their 11 starters on defense. And they have a transfer coming in from Florida, who I would assume is good enough to play at the SEC level. So I don't see them taking a big step back defensively. I think at the end of the day, Sonny Dykes is going to have to make Chandler Morris good enough to compete for the Big 12. TCU ceiling is going to be whatever Chandler Morris' ceiling is. And I think that's just black and white. They have the talent to do it. It's just going to come down to Chandler Morris and what he can do. And again, like I said earlier in the video, he was recruited by Lincoln Riley, and we know Lincoln Riley is a quarterback guru. So if he brought in, the quarterbacks like Caleb Williams, Spencer Rattler, he brought over Kyler Murray, he coached Baker Mayfield, I believe. So you have all these guys that he coached. I mean, he even had didn't Malachi Nelson go there before he transferred to USC?
Malachi Nelson, I don't think he ever went there. I think
I'm saying he committed there and then
he committed there and then committed to USC.
Okay, that's what I meant. I'm sorry. But yeah, so I mean, he's recruiting all these top quarterbacks. Now, I'm not saying that Chandler Morris is on the level of these guys, but Lincoln Riley had to have seen something in him to offer him a scholarship to come play quarterback.
I think Chandler Morris, and I'm sure I'm gonna get flamed in the comments if I'm wrong on this, but I think he was a pretty high recruit. 5'4", probably a 4-star guy. Again, I don't know that off the top of my head. The corner you're talking about from Florida is Avery Helm. And again, you add that a guy who SEC cornerback to 8 starters for a defense that was decent. Now, I think a lot of people are probably going to hold that Georgia game against them, where they really kind of got smashed. But they don't play the SEC every game. They play the Big 12. And I don't think every offense they see is going to be as good as that Georgia one from last year.
Or the defense. So he was the number 17 quarterback coming out of high school in his year, Chandler Morris, which is not terrible. I mean, it's not the elite of the elite. But, I mean, when you're the 17th ranked quarterback and you're getting recruited by Lincoln Riley, like I said, they had to have seen something in him. And, I mean, he was there all last year. So it's not like he's a true freshman. He has experience, maybe not in the biggest games of them all. But, again, just when we talk about Big 12 type defenses, I don't think he's going to be, under duress all year. I mean, he has the weapons around him. We talked about Trey Sanders. We talked about JoJo Earl, Tommy Brockermeyer. We talked about the guy from Oklahoma State, Jared Wiley, starting tight end who came back. He had 4 touchdowns last year, brought back 4 of the 5 starting offensive line. You have a top 10 coach in college football. So I really don't see a situation where they quote unquote drop off or have a down year. I mean, we say that, it can have different meanings for different people, but when I think of down year, it's a team that goes to the championship and goes 6-6. Like Oklahoma had a down year last year. That was to me, that's a down year. But when
let's look at the schedule.
When a team goes from 11-1 to 10-2 or 9-3, I don't categorize that as a down year. That's just not what I do. So when I looked at this schedule, I personally have them starting off 7-0, beating Colorado, Nicholls, Houston, SMU, West Virginia, Iowa State, and BYU. And then the back end of their schedule is really where it's going to get tough.
Yeah.
But I mean, could they drop one of the first 7 games? Of course. But I mean, I would think that they're going to be favored in all 7 of those. They may even be favored against Kansas State and Texas Tech.
I think, by that point in time, we'll see where they are.
I think at that point, we'll know how good Chandler Morris is against teams like Colorado, Houston, West Virginia, Iowa State, BYU. Obviously, the Nicholls game is not going to really matter. But, I mean, if he's showing flashes of greatness, even against lesser opposition, you're going to feel more comfortable going against the Kansas States and Texas, kind of the top tiers of the Big 12. But I think looking at the schedule, you can't tell me that they're only going to win 8 games.
I think if you say it, you're going to say it from the point of they may lose to Kansas State. They may lose to Texas Tech. They may lose to Texas. They may lose to Baylor. And they may lose to Oklahoma. So you have 5 games where, again, I think if this TCU team lost to, I wouldn't be surprised. I wouldn't be shocked. Um, I don't, and as we look at each one of those teams, I'll tell you, I probably have them this year behind Texas and Oklahoma. I haven't looked as we get to Texas Tech. I'm sure I'll look more at that roster, the Kansas State roster, the Baylor roster, but those are all pretty good teams as well. So, do I think they're going to drop all five of those? No. But do I think it's possible? If I looked and said, hey, their floor is probably 8-4 to me.
That's my floor I have for them. It's 8-4.
Yeah, and I wouldn't be shocked by that. But I'd probably have them somewhere 10-2, 9-3.
So I have their floor 8-4, and I know I just said I don't see it, but I mean, it's college football. It could happen. But what I'm saying is ESPN has their projected win total at 8. To me, like, I would smash that bet because I think they're going to win more than 8 games. Like that, to me, that's crazy. But I would say if I had to kind of pinpoint exactly where I think they're going to be, I think they're going to be 10-2 as well. I think they'll lose to Texas, and I think they'll lose to Oklahoma. I think they beat everybody else on their schedule, but I have their ceiling at 11-1. And I do think that they can make a chance to get back to the Big 12 title. And that's just because the first 7 games are so kind of cupcake games to me. And I think if they're on a roll, like last year, they were on a roll. You can knock out 4 more games realistically, and Oklahoma may have a bad year this year again. You know, I mean, you never know. So there's a lot of teams on here who, I mean, they have question marks. We haven't got to a few of them. But I think before we got to this video, I said TCU is going to have a down year. I don't know if I can say a down year if it's going to be 10-2 or 9-3, because no one coming into last season thought they were going to make it to the playoffs, let alone national championship.
I think if you say they're 9-3, 10-2, and they are out of the national championship race, I think you only say that down based on last year.